Everyone, I'm going to do a little bit of an unboxing video. So as a post-Christmas January sale treat, I bought myself a couple of sets. I'll pop the link for the other video that I did for the Daniel Smith set. This one is a different set. This is Daniel Smith Watercolour Essential set, which was very reasonably priced for artist quality 6 tubes of paint. Daniel Smith's quite a new one to me. I do like the granulation, so I'm going to go through the colours. I've squirted them all out onto my palette, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a poppy field. I've not long done a poppy field, but I think the colours lend well to it, so I'm going to have a play with that. So we have got Pthalo Scarlet. I'm going to use the colours neat from the palette, but I'm just going to show you what these colours look like as we're going. So this is Pthalo Scarlet. The next one is Quinachrome Rose, which is there. Then I have got New Gamboge, which is very nice. This is Hansa Yellow Light. So really nice. You've got 2 warm yellows, you've got 2 reds, a cool red, so these work well for mixing in primary colours. And then this one is Pthalo Blue, which is lovely. And then you've got ultramarine, which tends to be quite a warm blue, which I'm hoping is going to granulate loads. So it's a really nice mix as a starter, because you can make a lot of colours with that, and that's what I'm going to show you today, really, that you can go with a small set like this and make a lot of colours. So all of the colours are squirted out on my palette. I'm going to move these out of the way. That's that little bit of a wow, the new set, it's always exciting. I've taped down a piece of paper. It's Saunders Waterford, it's cotton paper, it's 12 by 9. I've just taped it down to the table to keep it flat, really. I've got a line, a pencil line halfway across, which is going to denote the sky from the poppy field, and I'm just going to have a little play and we're going to see what these colours do. So I'm going to wet the sky first of all. It'll be interesting for even somebody experienced who's done the other poppy field to see the difference of artist quality paints to Cotman, because that's what I tend to use when I'm teaching students, and they're a very good standard quality, student quality paint to use. I use them in my own work, and just to see what a different brand actually looks like. So I'm going to start with around number 10. This is nicely wet, it's got a nice sheen, and I'm going to come in with a bit of ultramarine blue. And we're just going to see what happens, have a little play. So I'm dabbing into water first, so I've got some flow. I tend to do that when I'm using neat paint. I'm going to let it flow and do its thing. It's really nice just to see different effects on paint. This is shooting quite a lot in comparison to Winsor & Newton. I'm taking a little bit more in. I'm going to dip. I'm not going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to dip into some of the Quinachrome Rose. Just take a little bit of that in. Rinse my brush out. Just want to make sure it's nice and clean. Now, Gamboge Yellow used to be this colour in Winsor & Newton. A lovely, what I would class bird's custard colour, and then they changed the pigment because they ran out. So this is very exciting to be able to get this colour back. Works fantastically for sunsets. It's not quite as vibrant as Winsor & Newton's used to be, but it's still a very nice warm yellow. It's nice to have a warm transparent yellow. in your kit. Okay, I'm going to swap down to a number 6. And again, I'm still playing with that rose colour. This is very vibrant. If you like colour, then it's always nice to play like this. So if I take the ultramarine blue straight onto that yellow, I'm going to end up with a green. So the way around this is to take it on with a bit of the rose and then take the ultramarine blue over the top. And then you'll get a purple that will go to like a natural looking grey rather than a green. You can also mix the purple in the palette. Because I'm wanting to flow and play with the paints, I'm tending to do it on here because I think when you're experienced, it's nicer to play with it on the paper to see what's going to happen. You get a vibrancy that you don't get when you're mixing in the palette. Okay, so I'm going to make up a nice dark green now for the background. So I've got some more extra ultramarine here because I knew I was going to need it. So this is ultramarine blue and gamboge yellow. I'm just going to see what sort of green that makes. It's a nice natural green, so we're going to go with that and get some trees in whilst it's still nice and wet. So this is my round number 6. It's got a really nice shooty effect to it, definitely. Be interesting to see how much the Pthalo blue shoots, because I would expect the Pthalo blue to shoot a lot more than the ultramarine blue. I'm going to take a little bit of the ultramarine in as well by itself. That's really nice and effective. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to come on and we're going to get a base down here, and I'm going to use some slightly different colours. Again, it's really just to play with this colour mix and you get to see how it's going to work. So I'm going to use the Hansa Yellow light within the bottom, and I'm also going to use a little bit of the Pthalo blue within there. Okay, so I've wet the bottom. I'm going to come in. So this is what I would class as a lemon yellow, really. It's more acid, so it tends to be a more spring yellow. It's got a definite contrast with the warm yellow in the background. It just shows you how if you vary these things, you can have a real dramatic effect. I like the granulation that's happened on the trees in the background. That's worked really nicely. So I'm doing horizontal strokes. I'm going to keep the colour fairly pale towards the back. It's a way of just creating a bit of distance and a bit bolder towards the front. So I've used quite a lot of the yellow. Now I'm going to come into this Pthalo Scarlet, I think it was. So if you watched my other poppy one, you know exactly what I'm going to do now, which is put my poppies in without getting them in the sky. That's where the birds appear. It's not supposed to splatter that far. Keep it really close. I want some bigger poppies this time. Okay, so if it splatters like it has, bit of damp tissue, lift that off. I will make that into birds, probably. Damp brush. Just going to see if it lifts. It might be a staining colour, and in which case that's going to make some birds in that area. There are certain things you persist with straight away to see if you can save it, and then there's ones that you leave till the very end. Right, these bits here, I can just blend those in. They can be swathes of distant poppies. Because I want bigger poppies, and these are working very nicely. It's very shooty, this paint. I don't want to go too far with the... I'm going to take a couple more swathes of poppies in by doing a couple of dabs here and there. So we're just going to spread these out a little bit. So these become distant poppies. So if you get any bigger ones, they're going to become your distant poppies. Right, and then I'm going to just try a little bit of this Pthalo blue as well in here. Bring this towards the front. Don't worry about so much getting your greens at this present moment. We're just going to bold this up a little bit. I'm going to take a tiny bit of the Pthalo blue so you can see how different these tones are. And this blue's very strong, which is it's the same within the Winsor & Newton brand. Pthalo blue is classically very strong. So I'm coming in now and creating a few swathes of green. The paper is very slightly drying, but that's fine. I'm going to work with it. In some ways I'm nearly dry brushing this on, so I'm getting that little bit of texture. If I take a little bit more of the yellow, just into this blue a little bit. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. What I'm going to start to do is just bold this up a little bit in places. So this is this pearl red. I'm just going to start to bring in a few poppy shapes. So I don't want to do all of them. I don't want to eliminate all of the soft edges, but I want to bold up a few of these poppies in the foreground. So you're sort of doing petals and then a few half a petals. Any of the little ones I want you to leave. Things tend to work best in odds, so if you've got groups of odd numbers that work together, So I've got a 3 here, I've got another 3 there, but I don't necessarily want to do 3 together like that. So I'm taking some on in a different way. I'm going to leave that as is there. Okay, so I need a dark now for in the centre of the poppies. So if I take a little bit of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the rose, a little bit of the gamboge yellow, a little bit more of the ultramarine. See that? You've got a dark, a black. I'm just going to dot that in. Some of them aren't wet anymore, some of them are a little bit wet, and this works quite nicely to then give a bit of variety. Don't dot them all in the same place. So you want some to be in the centre, some to be off centre. You can see those poppies appearing. Pick up my round number 10. I'm going to use this yellow. So this is the Hansa Yellow. And take a tiny bit of this Pthalo blue in. So I've got a similar colour to what I've had in that background. And what I want to do is just glaze a little bit. So this is on to dry. I want to start to try to bold up a little bit more in the foreground. This is turning out to be a lot more sort of semi-abstract and looser than I expected. But I will persist. So I'm avoiding the poppies. And this is quite watery, so those colours will shine through from underneath. Can you see how that's sort of gelling it all together? I haven't gone over everything. I've gone over little bits, I've left little bits of light. I'm working with the technique that has happened on this picture. Hopefully it'll just pull it together. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to come in and do my little birds. So where I've blobbed here, this is where my little birds are going to go. I'm going to have a little... See, it's like doing an exaggerated tick. So I'm going to have quite a few. And then they can be flying together. And that just will detract from that little blob that I've got. Happens to the best of us. You can see I've got a nice pattern of birds. I always like to have one trailing behind. There you go, so I've got one trailing behind as well. Okay, so I'm going to work into the foreground now. I think it's coming together. It just shows you I can start and go wrong and it can still work, and it's all about just practice and confidence. Okay, I want to turn this around. Okay, so I'm upside down now for a reason. That's because it's easier to paint this upside down. So I'm coming back into that gamboge yellow, and I'm going to have some ultramarine in there. I'm also going to have a bit of Pthalo blue. So I'm going to mix it up a bit. I want it to be more vibrant. It's what I would call classic cadmium yellow green, this, and it's not quite vibrant enough for me. That's better. Okay. So that little bit of Pthalo blue has made all the difference. So I'm going to come in and start to create poppy stems to the ones you've got, the ones you can see so far. So all of the ones that you've made with the hard edges, you need a poppy stem to. Then you can start to come to some of the ones with the softer edges as well. Basically, do not want floating poppies. So I think I'm pretty much there. Got a couple here, look, that we're going to bring up and do that with. Okay, so then I'm going to start to come in and create a little bit of a base. So I'm just dabbing on. I'm thinking a base, and I'm also thinking if I want any leaves. I'm going to start to get that. So I'm going to start with my round number 6, then I'm going to come in with my rigger for some finer ones. So this is getting a little bit of a base to start with. There's a lot to do otherwise with a rigger. I'm just dabbing randomly there. I'm going to come in with my rigger. Just do a few. Squiggles and grasses. Can have some coming through the poppies as well. It's much easier, I find, to paint downwards to a point. So this is why I've turned upside down. I'm not going to come through any of my ones that I've painted harder. Just run out of a bit of colour. So the softer ones I'm happy to come through. Harder ones I'm keeping separate. run a few behind. This building up, you've got that light behind, which is really nice, and that's going to work really effectively. And you're just building up really. Okay, I'll dry that off and take the tape off. So there we go, all finished. I'm quite pleased with it, considering that I've had a couple of disasters in here, and it just shows that you should always persist, even when you think you've gone wrong. Continue to work it, because every time you work something, you are learning something. So what do I think of the Daniel Smith colours? I like them. Would I especially buy them? I'm not sure that I would. There's certain ones that I like. This happened with the other set as well. So my initial in awe of that new gamboge, because it looked very similar. I think subtly it is quite muddy looking. So I think it's got some opaqueness to it that I'm not liking. I tend to prefer the transparent colours. I do love the ultramarine. The ultramarine is lovely. It's granulated. I do love the rose, the quinacridone rose. That's really, really lovely. The Pyrrole scarlet, again, I would use that quite often. A nice colour. The Pthalo blue, I think Pthalo blue is Pthalo blue. I've never seen one that looks any different. So I'd be quite happy using the student quality of Cotman if I was going to save money doing that. And then the ultramarine blue, yes, I do like it. I like it. It granulates a lot. That's what I tend to like the Daniel Smith colours for. The granulation. So I've bought the set, so I probably will use it. It's a good set for you to learn your mixes of primary colours with the cool and the warm of each. It's definitely a good set for that, and it was very reasonable for artist quality paint. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share, and I shall see you next time.